One of the pediatric doctors in Gaza was working in the emergency room attempting to save lives last week as the charred bodies of children showed up to the emergency room. She soon realized that those 7 charred bodies were her children. Her children.
Yes, they are murdering civilians on purpose. It is super obvious what's happening.
Israel's military says it attacked what it called key terrorists here in Gaza City and took steps to stop civilians getting hurt. But children were killed. It was horrific, says one displaced mother, pulled from the rubble with her son.
It was indescribable. Body parts, charred bodies, the smell of burning. I swear to God, our hearts have died. We're shaken. We're exhausted. Enough.
At least 54 Palestinians were killed in a single Israeli airstrike in Gaza City. The airstrike targeted a school that had turned into a shelter for displaced Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Now it looks like Israel's brutal acts against the Palestinian people has finally led to its closest allies on the international stage really questioning whether they want to continue supporting Israel and what it's doing. Now, before we tell you which countries are now saying that Israel has gone way too far, we should hear from Israeli Prime Minister, the former Israeli Prime Minister. His name is Ehud Olmert, who recently published a piece in Haaretz where he admits that he was actually wrong about Israel's objectives. And while he's been critical of Israel's, military acts in Gaza in the past, he was unwilling to call it a genocide or unwilling to claim that Israel was committing war crimes. What does he think now? Well, you're about to find out. He writes that recent operations in Gaza have nothing to do with legitimate war goals. The government sends our soldiers and the military obeys to wander around Gaza City, Jabalia, and Khan Yunis neighborhoods in an illegitimate military operation. This is now a private political war. Its immediate result is the transformation of Gaza into a humanitarian disaster area. He continues to write that over the past year, harsh accusations were voiced worldwide against the Israeli government and its military's conduct in Gaza, including accusations of genocide and war crimes. In public debates in Israel and on the international arena, I've rejected such accusations firmly. I claimed firmly and with conviction, in no case did a government official give orders to hit Gazan civilians indiscriminately. In recent weeks, I've been no longer able to do so. What we are doing in Gaza now is a war of devastation, indiscriminate, limitless, cruel, and criminal killing of civilians. It's the result of government policy, knowingly, evilly, maliciously, irresponsibly dictated. Yes, Israel is committing war crimes. He then lists specific reasons why he believes that Israel is committing war crimes, including the intentional starvation of Gazan civilians. Many are now dying from starvation. He writes that Israeli cabinet ministers headed by crime boss Benjamin Netanyahu are actively and with malice aforethought are pursuing a policy of starvation and humanitarian pressure with potentially catastrophic results. I believe the government of Israel is now the enemy from within. No external foe we've fought against over the past 77 years has caused greater damage to Israel than what the Itamar Ben-Gvir, Netanyahu, and Bezalel Smotrich-led government has inflicted on us. And look, this guy used to be a prime minister in Israel, and he's also overseen war crimes against Palestinians under his own leadership. But apparently the war crimes that Israel is now engaging in go too far even for him, which is kind of incredible.
Yeah, so Ehud Olmert is a really interesting guy. Was he, militant in the past against Palestinians? Yes. And in a way, I suppose that gives him even more credibility, although I don't like thinking about it that way. But is he someone who is genuine and is trying to help Israel by making sure that they don't do these egregious war crimes, which is turning the whole world against them? Yes. Is he also trying to help Palestinians? To some degree. But I don't question his motives. I think that he's right. If you want to help Israel, get them to stop this war, get the criminal thug terrorists that are running it right now out of the government, and bring back sanity. And this is not a new opinion now that he's saying these things. If you've been watching the Young Turks, you've heard me say many, many times, the one peace offer that was real and that the Palestinians should have taken was the one that Ehud Olmert made when he was prime minister in 2008. That was a deal that was good enough to take. I wish to God the Palestinians had taken it. Now, he currently has another peace plan offer that he's worked with the former Palestinian foreign minister on. It's a terrific solution. There's nothing wrong with it. By the way, the Arab coalition also has a plan that is also perfectly good, where they come in. Look, to be clear, nothing is perfectly good, right? But is it infinitely better than Israel's solution of ethnic cleansing and genocide? Yes. Does it exist? Yes. And so the Arab coalition says, we'll pay for it and we'll drive Hamas out, so you don't have to worry about any of that as long as we get on a road to a two-state solution. But Omer is right. The current Israeli government does not want a two-state solution. They want Israel from the river to the sea. They want greater Israel, and they have maps of it. They talk about how they're going to conquer Gaza, and they're thinking of taking parts of other countries as well. Southern Lebanon, Western Syria. This is an imperial empire that does not mind doing ethnic cleansing or genocide at all. Now, this is, again, not about Israel being the enemy. This is about this current government of Israel that is doing these horrific war crimes and that believes in having an imperial empire and stealing their neighbors' lands and invading them and killing them and indiscriminately killing civilians to be able to grab more land of conquest. And now the word conquest is directly from the Israeli cabinet. They are flat out admitting that this is about conquest and not about self-defense. And so I appreciate Omer's comments on this. And now we're going to tell you about the Europeans who are way, way late. They are terribly, unconscionably late to criticizing Israel. Of course, America's dead last and totally controlled by Israel. But Anna, tell us about the European reaction.
Yeah, so let me just comment on what you just said, because yeah, they are very late. And I don't know what the catalyst was for all of these European leaders coming out and finally saying, okay, enough is enough. Because it's not like Israel's conduct was okay for the last, 19 months. The conduct was terrible from the very beginning. In the very beginning of this war, Israel would tell Palestinians, okay, we're gonna start bombing in the north, so we're gonna need you to evacuate to the south. And as they were evacuating to the south, the IDF was targeting them and bombing them. Let's not forget that. That's not new. That didn't just start happening this week. That happened from the very beginning of this war. Okay, now with that in mind, hold on. Let me get to Germany real quick. But the German Chancellor suddenly grew a set. Okay, Friedrich Merz says that these recent strikes on the Gaza Strip can no longer be justified as a fight against Hamas. He told a broadcaster, WDR, in a televised interview, quote, harming the civilian population to such an extent as has increasingly been the case in recent days. No, not recent days. This has been the case from the very beginning, but nonetheless, he continues, can no longer be justified as a fight against Hamas terrorism. I no longer understand what the Israeli army is doing in the Gaza Strip, with what goal the civilian population is being impacted to such an extent.
I could buy you a clue.
The Times of Israel reports that while the Chancellor plans to have a call with Netanyahu to urge him to not overdo it, take it easy. He also made clear that he's very guarded in his criticism toward Israel due to historical reasons. Okay, are we gonna use the Holocaust as the excuse for never criticizing Israel carrying out ethnic cleansing and genocide? Really? How ridiculous is that? The government of Israel is not a symbol of all Jews, okay? You can criticize a foreign government, especially as they're slaughtering innocent people at a large scale. But okay, anyway. So I think that's part of the reason why Germany has basically been supporting Israel almost as aggressively as the United States government does. Now, the US government does it for corrupt reasons. I guess Germany does it because they don't want to draw any attention to the fact that, they carried out a Holocaust that persecuted and slaughtered Jews, decades and decades ago. But you don't have to attach those two situations to what's happening right now and what's being carried out by the Israeli government at this very moment. You could be on the wrong side of history twice, but maybe that's what the chancellor's worried about here. Anyway, Israel's most prominent enabler is the United States, and the Times of Israel also reports that Donald Trump had a heated phone call with Netanyahu in which Netanyahu wanted to bomb Iran and Donald Trump pushed back. I'm not gonna give anyone any credit until I actually see some real action in holding Israel accountable for what's currently going on. I have no doubt that Netanyahu wants the US to go to war with Iran on its behalf, on Israel's behalf, but let's just wait and see what happens.
Yeah, so no, Trump and Netanyahu are potentially fighting over whether we're gonna go to war with Iran. And I'll give Trump credit for this. He's the first US president in my lifetime to not immediately follow an Israeli order. Like he's at least pausing for a second because it's so harmful to the US and to his anti-war stance and to make America great again that he's paused. I mean, he's followed Israel's orders on everything else. If you criticize Israel in America, he'll arrest you, deport you, etc. But on that one, he's paused for a second. Okay, now let's talk about the Germans. Because of historical reasons. But okay, wait, let's break that one down. So did Germany do the Holocaust? Yes. Was Holocaust one of the worst things in world history, if not the worst? Yes, okay. So, but the idea that came out of that was never again. Did they think just never again for only one ethnic group?
I guess
that's what they meant, because if you believe that as you have a certain responsibility as the German government to make sure that things like genocides never happen again, then you would be opposed to the Israeli government. You wouldn't be backing the Israeli government. So it's like, have Jews been victims throughout world history? Yes. So then I thought, okay, who's another group? I mean, there's many other groups, but let's pick one that's also been victimized throughout history. Poland. Constantly brutalized by the Germans, the Russians, the Germans, right? And during the Holocaust, millions of Poles were killed by the Nazis, right? So since Poland has that history, if Poland now decided to occupy a part of the Czech Republic and say, well, it doesn't matter, we're gonna occupy them for 60 years because now we get to, because we're the special victims. And by the way, we're gonna slaughter 53,000 of them, including over 16,000 children. But you're not allowed to criticize us because we're Polish. So that never again. So I can do whatever I want to others. That would make no sense at all. But when it's applied to Israel, everyone pretends that it makes sense. If you care about Holocaust and genocide and ethnic cleansing, you would be opposed to Israel. You would not be in favor of this current government of Israel. That's just logic, unless you're super biased or other influences like lobbyists, etc. And Anna, to your question about what changed, that's why I tried to almost jumped in there. So you're right. Remember, and you pointed this out last week, and I've now said it in like 2 or 3 other interviews. In the beginning of the war, there was a hospital that was hit, and every pro-Israel supporter was like, "Oh my God, how could you say it was us? Israel's so moral. We would never hit a hospital." You all have to retract it. You all have to apologize to Israel, right? They've destroyed every Israel in Gaza now.
Every single hospital has been bombed by the IDF in Gaza. Every single one of them. Every single one of them.
So
one of the pediatric doctors in Gaza was working in the emergency room attempting to save lives last week as the charred bodies of children showed up to the emergency room. She soon realized that those 7 charred bodies were her children. She later found out that 2 more of her children were killed in their family home as a result of an IDF airstrike. Only one of her 10 kids remains alive, okay, in critical condition in a hospital as we speak, an 11-year-old boy. Her husband was also critically injured and is currently in the hospital as well. Yeah. Single airstrike almost wiped out her entire family as she was in the emergency room attempting to save other people's lives. That's what's currently transpiring in Gaza right now. But the Chancellor should be real careful about what he has to say in critiquing the IDF and its conduct in the Gaza Strip, because history.
Yeah, no, okay. It's because power. Israel has power, the Palestinians don't. That's why they're getting slaughtered. And by the way, those 9 dead kids of that doctor, they were not killed. They were murdered by Israel.
They were murdered.
The former prime minister is telling you we're indiscriminately killing civilians. That is what terrorists do. There's no question about it. They said, as to Anna's point earlier, oh, that's okay, we're gonna gently move them to the south because we're looking to protect them. Because Israel is the most moral army and they would never kill any civilians. We're just gonna move them to Khan Yunis. They've destroyed Khan Yunis. They've destroyed the entire south. They bombed the hell out of every civilian area in Gaza. Yes, they are murdering civilians on purpose. It is super obvious what's happening. Okay, and lastly, so why did they move? That all the hospitals, all the schools, all the death and destruction didn't move the Germans, the French, etc. They're still sitting there, licking the boots of the Israeli government. So why did they finally move? Because their entire populations are now like, are you guys serious? You're gonna let them starve 2 million people to death? And so they were on the brink of starvation, and that's when the European governments rebelled. And by the way, that is when Smotrich put out the statement that we read to you last week, where he said, it turns out this is bad optics. He said, I would love to not only starve them to death, but I would like to deny them water so it's quicker and they die from dehydration. But it turns out we're gonna lose money. The thing that, the only thing that Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, and Netanyahu apparently care about from the outside world, and approval. So we're going to, and he said this, we're just going to bring them to the brink of starvation, but don't let them starve so that the idiot Europeans can follow our orders like dogs. Okay, yes, yeah. I'm adding colorful language there, but you can go see his own quote where he says, I would like them to die of dehydration, but we have to bring them to the brink of starvation so that the world doesn't turn against us and lets us finish the job, apparently the final solution for Gaza, and either kill or remove every Palestinian from Gaza and steal that land. So you can look up Smotrich's words and see it exactly for what they are. He's a genocidal maniac, and the German leader just figured out, oh, we might not want to help a genocidal maniac. Thank you, Germany, for just figuring that out.
Yeah. In addition to that, Canada and the United Kingdom are considering economic consequences for Israel due to what's currently transpiring in Gaza. French leader Emmanuel Macron wants to review the European Union's association with Israel, including its trade deals. And finally, you have the prime ministers of Spain, the Netherlands, and Italy co-signing onto what Macron has to say. So many of Israel's Western allies are now taking a good hard look at what's happening in Gaza, and they're like, we don't really want to be on the wrong side of history. In the case of Germany, again. So we'll see how this really plays out. Right now, it just seems like threats. Israel remains undeterred. We'll see how this story develops.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.